Good morning, everybody. I hope you've had a wonderful week at home. Today we are going to learn about Parshas Vayikra. Vayikra is Sefer number 3. Come learn about the Korbanos with me. What is another name for Sefer Vayikra? Sefer Vayikra is also known as Toras Kohanim. Can you say that? Toras Kohanim. Let's clap it out. Toras Kohanim. Good job. Why is it called that name, right? Why is Vayikra also called Toras Kohanim? It is called that because most of this sefer that we are learning about has to do with the halachas of Kohanim, right? How the Kohanim prepared the korbanos and how the Kohanim worked in the Beis HaMikdash. This week's parsha talks a lot about korbanos. What is a korban? If you look in the picture, we can see that in the times of the Beis HaMikdash and the Mishkan, a korban was a present that we gave to Hashem. You can see by the animals in the picture that we have 5 different types of korbanos. We have an ox, a sheep, a goat, a dove, or a pigeon. When a Jewish person does an Aveira and brings a korban to Hashem, he shows how truly sorry he is, and Hashem will forgive him because he sees that we are dedicated to him. When he brings an animal, he puts his hand on the animal's head. This is called smicha. You know, not everybody can afford to bring an animal. Animals can be quite expensive. And when you go to the marketplace to buy some of your korbanos, you will notice that not everybody can afford to buy an animal as a korban. Does this mean that because a person cannot afford to buy an animal, he shouldn't bring a korban to Hashem? That he shouldn't be allowed to bring a korban to Hashem? Hashem also has a plan for him. If a person is too poor to bring an animal as a korban, he can bring a mincha offering. A mincha offering is made of flour, oil, and levina, a spice. Can you tell me what kind of oil you think a person can bring? Can he bring any kinds of oil? If you look closely in the picture, there is a clue. You guessed it, it's shemen zayis. Well done. How much of the korban mincha is put on the mizbeach? If a person comes to the Beis HaMikdash with his korban mincha and he wants to put it on the mizbeach, how much is going to go on? You remember the mizbeach that we learned about. The mizbeach is the ramp, right, that we take the animal or mincha offering up to Hashem. He only needs to bring 3 fingers full. Can you make 3 fingers full with your hand, like you see on the picture? That is all he needs to bring of his korban mincha. Now you might be wondering, what is going on? Because there's a whole offering that's being given here to Hashem. What happens to the rest? And I knew that you would ask that question. So if you take a peek at my next slide, you will see that is exactly the question I asked. What was done with the rest of the mincha offering? Can you think for a minute? What would happen to the leftovers of the korbanos? If you remember, we said in the beginning of the parsha that Sefer Vayikra is also called Toras Kohanim. That's because the Kohanim are also spoken about in this week's parsha. And you guessed it, the rest of the mincha offering was given to the Kohanim to eat. There's something very special that needs to go on every single korban. Can you think what could go on every single korban before it gets put on the mizbeach? Why don't you shout out some answers and maybe I can hear you all the way on Sturt Street? I'm almost sure that one of you said it. It's salt. Salt needs to go on every single korban. Now, what do we do today? Today we don't have a Beis HaMikdash. Today we don't have a mizbeach. What goes on our things today to remind us of the Mishkan and of the korbanos and of the Beis HaMikdash? We dip our bread into salt. On Shabbos, you notice that there's a little bit of salt on the table. Did you ever wonder why? Did you ever wonder why the salt is on the table? So now you know. The salt is on the table because we dip our challah into salt to remind us of the korbanos. Why did the Jewish people bring korbanos to Hashem? This is a very good question. Why didn't we just daven to Hashem? Why did we have to bring korbanos? By bringing a korban, we would become closer to Hashem. You know, I want you to think for 1 minute. If somebody has a birthday, or if it's a special day for somebody, and we bring them something special and we bring them a present, how does that make us feel towards that person? It makes us feel that we love them, that we're doing something kind for them. When we bring somebody a present, it brings us closer to that person. We feel good. We're excited for that person to open up the present. Did you know that there were also different types of korbanos that could be brought to Hashem? Not because you did an Aveira, because you wanted to, because you want to be close to Hashem, because you want to thank Hashem. And when we bring a korban to Hashem, it brings us close to Him, and it makes us feel connected to Him. There were other reasons why a person would bring a korban to Hashem. If you take a look at these pictures on the page, let's see if you could work out why a person would bring a korban to Hashem. Let's look at the first picture. The first picture on the left shows a man walking through the desert. He looks so tired. He looks so hot. And then in the next half of the picture, he's arrived home and he looks safe and happy and he's excited to be there. Even his children are excited to see him. The next picture, we see a man on a big ship. It kind of looks like it's storming. But on the other half of the page, we can see that he's arrived safely on dry land and he feels good. He feels happy. The next picture shows a man who is very sick in bed. He looks really tired and really lonely. I think he's even got some chicken soup over there to help him feel better. But then we see how strong he looks. Look at those muscles. He looks much better. And the last picture we see is a man who's stuck in jail. Maybe he did something wrong. Maybe he did something wrong by mistake. Or maybe he did something wrong on purpose. But we see that he's out of jail and now he looks happy. Have you guessed why else we can bring korbanos to Hashem? A person can bring a korban of thanks to Hashem after he's safely crossed the sea, or after he's passed through the desert and he's arrived safe at home. He can bring a korban because he's being freed from jail, or he's recovering from a very hard illness. Today we express our gratitude, our hakaras hatov to Hashem, by saying the blessing of Hagomel instead of bringing a korban. If we travel a far distance over somewhere that's quite dangerous, or if we have a situation in our lives which is a little bit dangerous, we now make a special bracha in shul called Hagomel. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. And you know, we had Rosh Chodesh this week, Rosh Chodesh Nisan. This week's Parsha, this week's Shabbos has another name as well. It is called Parshas HaChodesh. To know that we just had Rosh Chodesh Nisan. I hope you have a wonderful and restful Shabbos, sending lots of love, and we'll speak next week.